Hello everyone, and today we're going to be going through all the brand new Final Fantasy VII Remake footage that came out yesterday during the developer interview that they put out, and it just had a whole bunch of fresh footage that we've never seen before, and some of it was really interesting. So instead of doing the typical analysis video where I'm sort of behind the screen typing up a script, rewatching it thousands of times over, I sort of wanted to do something that was face-to-face and a little bit more personal, so we can just crawl through all of this together. So without any further delay, let's get started. So starting out here, we're in the church, and we are greeted by Aerith right after falling through the ceiling from the Airbuster fight. And she looks fantastic. I mean, the shape of her eyes, the shape of her lips, as well as the color of them. She just looks good, man. She looks so cute. Out of all the characters' faces, I feel like her face, to me at least, looks the best. I just feel like it's just so well proportioned and cute. Again, yet another scene that should be familiar for people who've played the original a dozen times over. This is when, right after the first bombing mission and you get back to 7th Heaven, you get the flower from Aerith, and you gotta choose who you're gonna give it to. Either you're going to give it to Tifa, or you're going to give it to Marlene. Now, most of you probably will be seeing this scene because this is where you get all your romance points for Tifa in. So if you want to romance Tifa, this is probably what you'll be seeing. I'm probably going to be spending my romance points toward Aerith, so I'll probably end up giving the flower to Marlene. Nice zoom in of Cloud's face, him just being real cool. We get a good look of Barrett here without his sunglasses. Something I really didn't notice before is his earring here, which also looks really good on him. And I have to say that Barrett honestly looks really handsome in the remake. Then there's Reno here, and I'm under the assumption that this scene is taking place right before the Sector 7 plate collapse, and Reno is just looking like an e-boy here. I mean, just look at his facial expressions, that shirt that is unbuttoned way too low. Everybody's favorite e-boy. And if you notice in the background, there's this warning sign about plate separation. So that almost guarantees the fact that it has to be before Sector 7 plate collapse. This should be a very enjoyable boss fight. In the scene, you got Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse. They're about to get on their motorcycles and go somewhere. Now, what's most interesting here, when we've seen them riding on these motorcycles together, normally we saw Jessie getting on the bike with Cloud. Here we see her getting on the bike with Biggs. And she's actually the one driving here. So then we have Cloud staring off into the distance, and there's these things over here that seem to be moving. And I honestly don't know exactly what they are. It's kind of dark, but they definitely look like some sort of enemy. Maybe they're like those hounds that you fight in the first reactor. I'm not sure. Then we have Cloud entering this room here, and I'm honestly not sure which room this is supposed to be, but if you guys know, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. Honestly, this scene here is really cute, just because you can see Tifa's like facial expressions, and it really lets you know the level of details that characters have here. I mean, just look at her face, the way it animates. It's just very, very adorable. And she does this thing where she's just like, it's nice. And you see her face like light up, right? It's very nice. Tifa is being done some very good justice in this game. And then Cloud seems to have a run-in here with like the Yakuza or something. I don't know who these guys are. They look like they're up to some trouble, just judging by the way that they're dressed and how they're looking at Cloud, and how Cloud is sort of looking at them like, oh crap, this is about to be some trouble. And so there seems to be some sort of tension happening in this scene. If I'm not mistaken, this is somewhere near 7th Heaven. So, yeah, and then we got Phoenix right here. And he appears to be talking to a girl here. And this girl sort of looks like the one on the back of this book right here. In fact, this character may not even be new. He may be from, again, this book. And for those of you wondering, this book right here is Final Fantasy VII, The Kids Are Alright, a Turk's Side Story. And this book is actually pretty important. This book is one of the hard confirmed things that is going to be canon for Final Fantasy VII Remake story. So pretty much everything in this book happened for sure. So, if you want to read Final Fantasy VII, The Kids Are Alright, I recommend it as it's going to be referenced a lot in this plot going forward. I haven't started reading this yet. I just got it from Amazon the other day, but I plan to read it, and hopefully we'll be doing like a book summary review of it. You can also tell that whatever kind of conversation that they're having, something in this facial expression right here lets you know that he's kind of getting sassy with her, or maybe getting angry, because the way his eyebrows raise here, he's like, no, I don't want to buy your Girl Scout cookies. So he's kind of got that like expression going on. So at least that's the feeling that I got from him. So then we have this right here, this scene where they're getting off of the train. And more than likely, this takes place after the first bombing mission, because if you notice here, Cloud has the flower on him that would be given to him by Aerith. So, reasonably, you can conclude that this was the first bombing mission, because that's when he would receive that flower. And it would be between that and when he gets back to 7th Heaven and decides whether he wants to give that flower to Marlene or Tifa. So, and then there's this scene here with Barrett, and he's just sort of, they seem to be cheering in victory or happy that they did it. So, which is very interesting because the remake makes such a big deal about having remorse for those scenes. So we don't know yet because there's no voice acting, or it was cut from any of the footage that we saw. So we're just kind of looking at footage without voices. So this scene is actually pretty interesting. I believe Maximilian Dude talked about it in his video as well, where you'll have Tifa and Aerith on the ground after you fall through Don Corneo's little trapdoor, and they'll both be on the ground, and depending on if you pick Tifa or Aerith, it'll actually count for like romance points, and basically you'll actually have two different scenes depending on which girl that you pick. So the whole love triangle mechanic, the dating mechanic, is definitely back here in Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I'm really glad because they didn't just appease the popular options or popular shippers or whatever people want with their canons and their OTPs. None of that. Just like the original game, there's dating sim elements, which is great. You got a nice shot here of Cloud walking through the Honeybee Inn. I almost wonder if this is sort of like one of his first times going through the Honeybee Inn. Primarily I say that because Cloud is sort of like looking around, as you can see, and maybe sort of observing his situation here. And if you go to about right here, you can also see Aerith alongside with him. As you can see, she's sort of like looking around too, sort of examining the situation, seeing like what's going on here. So I would say that it probably is their first time going through that area. Now here you have the reactor on fire, and then you have like this zoom up of a, I'm not sure what you call it, like a megaphone type thing. And basically I'm assuming that it's alerting everyone about the attack that has just taken place here. So then of course we get a shot out here from the streets of the reactor. It's still burning, and just everything out here in the streets looks like it's in somewhat of chaos, and there's smoke coming out of the reactor. In fact, you can even see like this light sort of hanging over Crooked, and I think there was like a spark that came from it. And essentially what happened is that the bomb sort of caused such a giant shockwave that it sort of like knocked everything around in the surrounding area. You can even see a scene, I believe in the demo, where the reaction from the bomb like causes a car was just driving along the road, and the shockwave from that explosion just like sends the car like pushing it away from it. So the shockwave itself probably caused a lot of damage to the surrounding area, not just the reactor itself. Biggs again, looking incredibly handsome, pointing to this small air duct here. If I had to take a guess, this would probably be on the way to fight Airbuster, because I remember going through some air ducts around that time, so that makes a lot of sense. He's pointing to that being the only way in. So then we have this scene with the squad coming down here, which further confirms this is for Airbuster. I think we may have seen some of this footage before, where they're sort of coming down this elevator here. Unlike the original, where it was sort of a copy and paste reactor, it looks like things have changed a lot. A lot. And so this is sort of going to be almost like its own type of dungeon type area, I think. So this character right here, Leslie Kyle, this was thought to be a brand new character, mostly by me and people who did not read. Again, if you did not read this book, you would probably think, oh, that's a brand new character. No, not at all. This guy was in this book right here. So again, if you want all the canon Final Fantasy VII Remake story, get yourself prepared for the remake. This book is pretty much key to that. This guy here, Leslie Kyle, is one of those characters, and he works for Don Corneo, so we're gonna see a little bit more about him. But in my other video, I was saying that he looks like Dante if he became a trucker in the world of Final Fantasy 15. He's also looking at something in his hand, and judging by his face, it's making him really emotional. So he's holding something that has sentimental value to him, and I'm willing to bet that, again, the answer is probably in that book. So here's where I believe that they're going to be implementing day-night cycles, because as you can see here, it clearly looks like what would be nighttime or how Midgar would normally look, right? And then they make this transition. Cloud is sitting in the exact same spot, and lo and behold, it's now daytime. The pollution is way too thick, so of course you don't see the sun or really even the sky for the most part, and that's just keeping in line with Midgar. But as we had saw earlier, that the upper plates do receive some sunlight or some type of illumination. So essentially what's happening here is that we are probably going to have some sort of day-night cycle, and this was sort of their way of sneaking that in. I think that in a lot of areas that you're not going to see it. For the most part, in the lower plates, you're not going to be able to see any sort of sunlight. But in other areas and in the upper plates, you're definitely going to be able to see it. So it's going to be nice to see that sort of other side of Midgar that we didn't get to see in the original game. And this is actually Johnny. Johnny actually looks really good in Final Fantasy VII Remake. He looks cool. He's still kind of flamboyant, got the whole body showing, but he's got some abs. Not bad, not bad. Honestly, yeah, he looks cool. I don't really like the goatee thing that he's got going on there. He could totally lose that. Not my type of thing, but he looks good. Aerith here, again, my queen. And this is sort of an extended scene. We actually see this scene sort of fully play out. Aerith handing Cloud the flower. And then they're saying something to each other. Who knows? Obviously, I imagine that she's saying, hey, flowers, one gill. In either case, really good to see. She looks fantastic. Easily one of the best looking character models in the game. Love Aerith. So this is one of the brand new characters for Final Fantasy VII Remake. And I'm in love. God, she is beautiful. Look at that face. Just perfect. Madam M is her name. And she's one of the people who had the authority to pick Don Corneo's girls. And yeah, just judging by their clothes and sort of the background stuff, there's a lot of traditional Japanese type of influence here. very, very beautiful aesthetic. Another brand new character for the remake that we've been acquainted with since the theme song trailer. This is Andrea Rodea. And as you can see here, he is definitely a JoJo fan. He's doing Jotaro's pose right here. Of course, in the original game, after Cloud fell through Air's church, there was sort of that segment where he was separated from the rest of the party and he just had Aerith on his side. So this is probably from that section leading into Wall Market events. This scene is pretty interesting because you have Cloud and Biggs here and they see a flare go off. Now, maybe I'm mistaken, but usually you use flares in a distress situation. So maybe Jesse and Wedge ran into some trouble somewhere else. Then we got Chocobo Sam. Chocobo Sam is a gambling man, and that's why you see that coin in his hand. He's probably going to flip it to determine some type of bet. He's supposedly really into gambling, so I'm willing to bet that we're going to have some sort of gambling mini games that involve him. And now we're on the streets right after the bombing of the first Mako reactor, and things are tore up. Man, this is crazy. People are just standing out here. They're looking helpless. You can just really tell just how kind of dirty and grimy the city is too. There's just like trash bags piled up by this trash can, which is really insane. Just like when you think about dirt and pollution in Midgar, there's like this sign that's like falling over here again because that shockwave was so hard. What's also interesting here is how many car crashes that we see here. Because again, the shockwave from the reactor going off, like when people were driving and like sent their cars, like kind of make their cars jerk, just surely because of the force happening. And you can actually see that in the corner here, where these cars are just basically tore up and they collided into each other. Everything's on fire. And there's this moment here where Cloud is like walking past this guy and he like bumps into him and sort of does like this brush animation. So I don't know if that was something that's scripted there or if it's going to be something like an astral chain, or if you're like bumping the citizens, it sort of does something like that. And this is where Final Fantasy VII Remake gets deep for me, right? Look at this. This is like maybe like a shop or an apartment or something, right? But you have these two people standing outside of it as it burns, and then maybe that's their car they're burning too. And you can tell from the guy's expression here that like he's just standing there, and then maybe that's his wife or something, or his business partner, and she's like on her knees. Dude, they're having a freaking meltdown because their business or the place where they used to live is basically burning down. And this is the result of your actions within the first hour of the game. And then this is what they're showing you and saying, hey, you did this. You should feel bad. And honestly, it really hits you in a way that the original game just didn't. And almost by proxy, it sort of makes the original game feel like abridged in a sense, or like the plot outline for everything that happens in the remake. Because you have situations like this that logically should have happened after you blew up that first reactor, but you really didn't get the chance to sort of see that. And now with Final Fantasy VII Remake, you're really getting to look at what your actions have done and how much damage has been caused, and it's pretty crazy. So here you have people coming off of the train, and my assumption is that they're sort of having this thank goodness you're okay moment. That's what looks to be happening here. After this big sort of terrorist attack happens, everyone's just like, oh my god, thank goodness you're safe, which just sort of explains why everyone's sort of hugging on the train. If you look at this girl in the background, she actually has the same design as the girl on the back of this book. And given the fact that that guy right there was talking to her, I'm willing to bet that they are related in some sort of way. I mean, they came off of the same train here, so I would say that they're related in some sort of fashion, maybe. Also, whoever this guy is right here, he clearly has what appears to be a daughter and wife. I'm assuming he's some sort of Shinra employee. Now, in this next scene, we have Cloud, and he's going up these stairs, and he's sort of seeing more of the destruction. And again, this is what I love about Final Fantasy VII Remake, is that they're really making you take in the consequences of your actions. And you can just see, like, when Cloud comes up here, and there's just this destruction here. And they're making you sit in the consequences of everything that has happened and everything that has taken place. And they're making you feel it, man. Do you see all this destruction here? You did that. And you did it in the first hour. And honestly, no spoilers here, but it kind of reminds me of Nier Automata. If you guys have played that game, you know what I mean when I say that the game is designed to make you feel bad for what you're doing. And honestly, what they're showing here, I really haven't had that feeling since that game. Or I don't think any other game really gives that feeling in the same way that it did, but this is coming pretty close. So here we have the Watchman of Fate. It's sort of swirling around. God, it's really ugly looking. It's super ugly looking. Cloud then takes out the Buster Sword and he attempts to slash it right here. And nothing, dude. It goes right through it. So even though these things are sort of harassing them, they can't really physically attack them. So who knows how they're supposed to fight them? If they're supposed to fight them, I assume that they're bad because they're harassing Aerith, who's connected to the planet. So some footage here of Cloud being surrounded. Again, this should be like during the second chapter of the game. Right after that you bomb the first Mako reactor, and probably right after you do that whole thing where you're sort of investigating what happened on the streets here. So this is probably a scripted fight. From what I hear, the whole chase sequence that happens in the original game, it's like maybe a 2-minute affair at most. Dude, they're saying that it's actually a pretty big chase sequence here that happens, so I'm really curious to see how it plays out with Cloud sort of being pursued by these Shinra officers and having to run away and dodge them. So this scene right here, it's not that there is anything particularly interesting about it, or at least not compared to anything new that we've seen. But I just want to say, the lighting here is gorgeous. Look at it. Look at the way the lights are just sort of like reflecting off of the ground almost. And then you have like these like puddles of water. It's so beautiful for something that's so dirty and grimy, you know? And then it pretty much just goes back to the Abzu fight. So that's it for all of the brand new footage. And I gotta say, like always, this game is shaping up so good. I genuinely can't wait for April 10th to be able to play this. And there's always so many details in Final Fantasy VII Remake trailers and videos that something always goes under the radar. And Ultimate Weapons, if I missed any details today, please be sure to leave a comment below letting everybody know. And also, be sure to follow me on Twitter at @TheNightSkyPrince_ for plenty of Final Fantasy shenanigans. Until then, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.